Welcome to today's session, Effective Process Mapping to Drive End-to-End Process Optimization. My name is Lindsay Marymont. I'm on the marketing team here at Pipefy, and I am joined by my colleagues, Ernesto Salinas, our strategic business leader here at Pipefy. Ernesto has a very robust background leading sales teams and working directly with customers on very innovative solutions to very common business processes and problems. And we are also joined by Pedro Silva. Excited to have Pedro here with us as he is a solution design engineer here at Pipefy as we go through some of our process mapping sessions. And we have a great session in store for everybody here today. So welcome. Thank you for joining, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Hey, everyone. Glad to see we've got a pretty good sized room here. I'm Ernesto Salinas. I'll be kind of your host for today, and then Pedro will jump in for some more of the value adds when it actually comes to the specifics of mapping out a process, as well as going through a quick demo on how Pipefy helps with that instance. Let me move the slides here. So yeah, just kind of a quick way we're going to be doing today. We are going to do more of a workshop style. So hopefully everyone's ready to participate with some of their comments, and maybe even we can get a volunteer to actually help us map live maybe a piece of their process. So we'll have everyone muted. We will have the comment section available and open for questions. So if there is an instance, and we'll save some of the Q&A for the end as well, but be ready to share some of your comments, materials, questions. We want to really make this interactive for today. So I'm just going to run through a quick lay of the land to give us a sense of where we're at. I actually hosted a roundtable a couple weeks ago at OPEX. It's an operations conference in Florida, and the discussion of kind of where we are for businesses kind of set the lay of the land of what things are going to be like for 2023. So we all know processes absolutely run our business. It's kind of like the work moving through the flow of the day and making sure things are connected. So we know that's a big piece of what's happening today. A lot of these processes are really bad, as we've kind of seen with 2020 actually revealing a lot of this. Hey, can we really be efficient and make our processes run smoothly? And actually, we need to be efficient in order to be competitive within the marketplace. So it can save you, and we always talk about this a lot of the times when we're working with our prospects, is time saved, right? Cutting things down from 2 weeks to 1 hour, cutting processes down that take a month long to a few days, right? So it is time saved, but in the end, those are dollars saved as well. So what we've been kind of hearing from a lot of the prospects is shrinking budgets. We all know that we're trying to be a little bit more selfish with where we spend our money, and we're also being very careful on where we spend it, right? A lot of companies are going through evaluations of different processes and different tech that they have within their current tech stack. So people are making sure that we can either cut some of this stuff, shrink the budgets, whatever we need to do, right? So the pressure to stay competitive is higher, I feel like, than ever, just simply because of how things are now, right? Everyone is looking for a way to do more with less, right? And we're being asked to do more with less. I'm being asked to manufacture a lot more with the same team we have, and maybe even less of the team, right? So there's so many different examples we hear on a daily basis of this. And then innovation, right? We need to make sure, and this has actually created jobs recently, is to make sure that we can innovate at essentially at all costs. If we don't do this, we are not going to grow it the way we want to. We are not going to hit the revenue numbers we're looking to hit, and as well as hit any of the other KPIs that we need to hit within specific business units, right? So everyone has different measurables that they're looking at. So making sure that we innovate at all costs are some of the big things that we keep hearing right now. So we're going to pose a quick poll question. I told you we're going to make this interactive. So we're going to send out a quick poll question. Lindsay's going to shoot it out to everyone. We actually want you guys to decide what we're going to map today. So the process that we essentially have lined up are these 4 different processes: purchase process, HR onboarding, accounts payable, and an IT operations process. We are going to show you a quick demonstration, but we want this to be interactive. So you guys decide which process you want us to map, essentially. So we have, of course, examples ready for each one of these. So depending on which ones you guys select, we'll go through, and these are some of our more common ones we see quite often, but every single customer is different. I can't tell you how many times we're doing some kind of one-off process automation or process mapping for specific prospects. But yeah, please vote. Let us know which one you want us to start with, and we will jump right into that particular one. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some slides while you guys keep voting. So go ahead and vote, and I will keep working through some of this. So how processes are designed. We all go through an overview of like, hey, these are the steps, right? This is how we go through a particular process. In this instance, it's more of like a future employee, so almost like HR onboarding, right? And we can have a streamlined version of this. It kind of like is a snake version of it, going back and forth and going through the process. And we tend to know these answers and what each one of these steps are. But is this actually reality that happens? Typically, it's not, right? We find out that when there are some new requests that come in from an employee form, like different systems have to share different information. Forms aren't capturing the correct information. A lot of times we're trying to maybe create a ticket in a different system, like an ITSM system that now needs to populate different tasks for a different employee. So we find that it gets a lot more complex. Data a lot of times is incomplete. Employees in most instances in this particular use case don't have the best onboarding experience. And you lose time, back to the time piece of it, right? They onboard a little bit slower than they would have, which means that they can't get to their job as fast as it normally would be, which means we're essentially losing a little bit of money on that front end of not being able to get them onboarded quickly, right? So each system has different admins, different users. How can we connect all of these different systems, processes, teams in one single workflow, essentially, right? And this is essentially where Pipefy tries to help with this. And so we talk about future employees, we go through the different steps and we almost kind of group them in an instance, right? So what is the beginning first step, right? Do they fill out a form? Then it goes through an email. Then it has to go into a database. So let's capture some of these, like, and I try to tell people, we really are trying to break this up step by step and capture this in groups as we're kind of mapping this process along with you, to make sure that we know which systems connect to which team and what steps have to be accomplished in each one of those systems and or teams. So process modeling is just, it's such a large topic. And in my roundtable discussion a few weeks ago, we talked about sometimes this process mapping can take 6 months. Sometimes it can take, a month or two if you're really dedicated to it, and maybe even a few weeks, depending on the size of the process, right? So anytime you're going through mapping a process, there's so many different steps that have to occur through multiple teams, through different systems, as we all know. And certain processes are far more critical than others that we need to make sure we solve typically. But we find that the best way to start this, and this is something we do with our prospects every single day, is let's find a single process. Let's find, and we always say this, right? Keep it simple, right? Let's keep it simple, find a single process that we can build kind of an end-to-end journey with, and let's map that process out. So start small, start with a smaller team, I always say too, meaning not have as many people involved in this initial process mapping. That was something that got brought up as a topic in our roundtable discussions last week, was that you need to start small. And then you also need to lay out, you're not only mapping the process, but you're actually mapping out the teams that are involved in this process, whether they're executives that need to be involved, middle management, managers, even individual contributors, and mapping out who those individuals are, and at one point when they need to get involved to help you map that process, right? So you're kind of really dealing with a lot of different aspects when you're going through this process modeling. All right, let's see which process we're going to build. Oh man, did we almost get an even?
Might have to do two, Ernesto. We got IT operations pulled out in front, but purchase process is shortly behind.
Got it. Thank you guys for contributing. Looks like IT operations won by one person's vote. So I'm going to pass it over to Pedro. We're going to show you how we map out an IT operations process for some of those purchase process people. Don't worry, we can help you in some way, shape, or form post this call. So yeah, Pedro, I will stop sharing my screen and let you take it away.
Okay, then. So let me just share my screen here. Oops. Okay, yeah, there we go. So just as Ernesto said, we had some processes ready here to be mapped. Since the one that you chose is IT operations, I'll be using this one. And this is just like a sample flow chart for an IT ops process. And then I'll be moving over to PyPI to show you how you can map this IT op process, but essentially any process that you have here. How are you able to like translate the things that are on a flow chart or on your like process, being it like just written on a bullet points, or I don't know, just for the knowledge that you have on your team, how to pass it over to PyPI and streamline this process so that you can have it ready for the to use it basically on PyPI and have streamlined your process. So yeah, the one that we'll be mapping is this one here. You can see that it starts with a request submission, then we can have like screening or a triage, then we can have like a request analysis to see if we are able to solve this request. If not, then we can like check some missing info. If there is some missing info that we need to be provided, then we can send it back here, collect this info, process the info, and then afterwards we can just like approve it and basically approve like this request, and then send over this request to the person, letting them know that their request has already been processed and is already completed. And then we can also send like an NPS or a CSAT or something like that, so that people can start sending over like what they feel about this process.
Yeah, Pedro, would you mind zooming in just a little bit? It's a little further back for us. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And then maybe
Yeah.
talk through a little bit of those steps again really quickly, because it was a little hard to see kind of where things started, how it went through the flow, which teams had touched, and so on. Yeah. And you can see that Pedro
Sorry
is
about that.
using a tool called Miro. I know we have several different versions of tools that we actually use, but Miro seems to be the one that we can kind of create our flow chart quickly on. So just an example, if you are looking, and I do believe Miro does have a free version that you can also help get started on. So sorry, Pedro. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that, but yeah, so I'll pass it over through this process once again. Just like passing over, you can see that we have some lanes, which are basically each one of each like member or each actor on this process. So the requester, this is unassigned, so it could be either to the agent or an approver or someone else on the team. This is agents, which are basically people that will be taking action upon the things within PyPI. And when we pass it over to PyPI, I'll be sure to show you what's the difference between a requester, approver, an agent within the platform itself. And here are like some other parties. So on our process, it'll start here when the requester basically submits a request on an IT ops, but you basically like requesting like a new hardware being sent to them, or I don't know, a software change or a software license, resetting their password or things like that, regarding more to like operations while on IT. Then we'll have the screening or triage to see basically if this ticket complies with the company's policies and so on. And this can be automated, and I'll show you how we can automate this on PyPI. We'll pass over through an analysis when we'll see if we're able to solve the request, if we have some missing info and things like that. And then we can also require more information for the requester. After we process this, we can like have some other parties input things if needed. And then afterwards, it'll be approved. We'll process it, send a CSAT for our requesters so that they can send over their feedback regarding this process that we have here. Let me just, okay. Yeah, so let me just move right back to PyPI now. And this is basically your home screen while you are at PyPI. So you can see here that we'll have two lanes, so like two sections. The first one is pipes. Pipes are basically processes while when we're talking like PyPI lingo. So we have here a process that I'm a member of, that's expense reimbursement. We also have some databases, so cost centers, departments, and things like that. So databases are basically just like your normal database that you have anywhere, but this will enable you to use some items and some things here related to each one of your process. So let's say that I have some products. If it were like a purchase process, I could have a list of all the products that I have available for purchase, and then this will be shown while we are requesting something on a purchase process. Here, it could also be like, for example, all the items that I could request, like software licenses and things like that. So I'll also show you how this could work. And we also have like other pipes, which are basically the things that I'm not a member of. So here we have a lot of them. But yeah, so passing it back here to PyPI, let's go to template. So I think that a great way when you're starting your process to map it out is to start it from within the templates that we have here. So if you click here on templates, you see that we'll have a lot of templates showing up. So I have like new and trending, business operations, CRM, CS and support. Those are basically some processes that our team has already mapped out beforehand. And just by clicking on here and downloading it to your own organization, you'll be able to start using it on the go. It'll already be a little bit customized based off of the process that you're selecting here. So let's move over here to IT, and I'll select this one, which is service desk. So service desk will be basically IT ops. We could also like connect it with IT asset management, but in this case, I'll select a service desk process. So if I click here on service desk, you see that we have a video which will quickly explain to you how this works with PyPI. So just a demo that show you how this process looks like. But what we'll do is we'll click here on use template. And once I do that, what will happen is that I'll download this template to my organization. And this you could also do on your own organization. And when you do that, you already have a pre-mapped out process where you'll be able to start using it on the go. So let's just wait a little bit while it downloads.
Yeah, Pedro, I'll jump in here too. So we are going through this quickly, and apologize for us trying to get through this fast, but we want to give you guys a ton of information as fast as we can. So instantly, like Pedro and myself typically go through that exercise you saw in kind of the flow chart of actually building your actual flow. Once we kind of have those baseline tasks, right, or those baseline projections within that flow chart, that's when we actually start creating that same flow chart within Pipefy's product, right? So we need kind of that map initially to show us what goes where and what steps happen at each phase. And not to forget, we tie a lot of that stuff into integrations, right? Almost all of the prospects and customers of Pipefy have at least one integration that it connects to some sort of tool. Depending on if it's IT, it can connect to a specific IT tool. If it's HR, you're connecting to the HRS system, so on and so forth. Procurement, we might be connecting to like a Coupa or something, or SAP, if NetSuite. So different ways we kind of map and manage the pipeline as well as the workflow happens within that initial creation of that flow chart. And then Pedro then goes into Pipefy and starts creating that actual flow chart within the actual product to show you how those different steps can be automated and get done correctly. So just wanted to chime in there, give a little more context, Pedro, as we're going through this quickly, and feel free to pose any questions into the Q&A section as well as you guys are going through. But go ahead, Pedro, take it away.
Oh, sure. So yeah, just as Ernesto said, so we could either start it like from within this flow chart here and just create the process from scratch in Pipefy. So if I wanted to do that, I would click here on new pipe, click on start from scratch. So for example, I could go over here and put my name. So let's say IT ops or something like that, create a pipe, and Here I'll have basically, let's say, a blank canvas where I'll be able to just draft my process onto. But what I recommend for you, once you, even though you already have like it mapped out previously, it's always nice to check if we have this template already pre-built, because you'll have like kind of a head start and started a little bit further down the process if you already have a template. Since you see here that we have like request submission, screening, also some analysis. And if we move over here to this IT service desk, while it isn't like completely the same as if we had before, it is kind of similar. So we can just like adjust it and basically add the things that we need to add here. And then this will make like things easier to move on. So, okay. So we could either go through one way or the other. So let's actually start from like the blank canvas that I said. So go over here to IT ops. So you can see that whenever you download a template to Pipefy, you'll have like those three standard phases, which are like inbox, doing, and done. Usually what I do while mapping out a process, I click here and I delete those three. So let's do that. So once I delete those three, we can, oops, yeah, there we go. We can start adding our own phases right here on this process. So let's switch over to this here. So you see that we can, the idea behind Pipefy is that when we move over here, each one of like those columns that we have, so screening or solving, escalate the issue, done on archive, are all what we call like phases of the process. So let's say phases are steps of this process. So when we are screening, we'll be at a lane here. When we are solving the issue and escalating, each one of them will be on a lane directly here. So let's go here to this process and just like try to recreate it as lanes that we have here. So firstly, I would, this phase here we already have, which is like the start form. Then we'll have like a screening, which is this one here. Afterwards, we'll have like an analysis, which basically encompass all of this here. So the initial request analysis, the person will be able to select if we are able to solve the request, if we have missing info or not, do we require additional information or not, or if everything is okay, we would just process and send it over to the next step of the process. So the next step of the process would be approval is needed. So basically an approval, and then we would have like a final processing, which basically sends over to lets the person know that, yeah, your process is already, your ticket is already completed, and also sends a CSAT to the person. We also have like an adjustment step here in between those processes, and also like the CSAT, which would be like our last step of the process here. So yeah, I don't know if you wanna
Yeah, we
answer
had
to it now. Yeah.
Yeah, we had one question in the chat. How do you transfer the workflow kind of to the Kanban view format? Essentially, we are kind of doing it manually, right? The map is showing us the different steps and the phases that we've created. And in that instance, we're going to actually create those phases within the Kanban view. So we are typing it in directly. There's no real automated way to, like, say, import a flow chart into a system. But it also allows us to like customize this pretty easily at the same time, right? We want to make sure that we're not missing any steps, and that anything that gets added to a workflow chart or to like a Miro flow chart gets added to the actual system within those particular steps, right? So Pedro does this on a daily basis where they go through each one of these flow charts, create the actual flow within Pipefy, and then they go into the individual steps that happen within each flow. And then, of course, connect it to any integration, or what phase does it actually need to either push or pull information or data from a different system, as well as create things in different systems as well. So to answer your question, Martha, we do this like kind of step-by-step manually to make sure we don't have any steps fall through the cracks, as well as make sure we're doing every single task within the flow.
Yep. So basically what I done while Ernesto was answering your question is that I've created like, let's say, the backbone of the process. So I've added all the steps that we mapped over there. So screening, analysis, adjustments, approval, final processing, done. And then I've added just like an archived phase at the end. So if we, for some reason, want to archive any tickets, we can just move it directly to here. So to add those phases as an administrator, you just have to click here on this new phase button. And if you want to add like a new phase in between phases that you've already created, you can just click on this plus sign here, give a name to this phase. You can see that you can also set this phase as at the end of the process. So it would be like this done and archived. So basically when a card or when a ticket reaches the final step of a process, and you can also like allow creating cards directly on this phase. So let's say that for some reason I could like skip the screening phase and just create it directly on analysis. I could also enable that. So now that I've created the backbone of the process, I just wanted to bring up another feature that we have on Pipefy, which is the flow. So when you have the flow here, we didn't really create like the fields that we'll have in each one of the phases, but basically this enables you to see how your process is moving into each one of those steps. So you have each step that we have created. So screening, analysis, adjustments, approval, final processing, and done. And now we can set, so basically how this process will run. So from screening, we see that we are enabling movement to analysis. Burn from analysis, it doesn't really make sense to like move back to screening since we won't need it to move back. So, okay, I just removed that. And then we can just like move back here. On this case, it'll move back to analysis. So that's correct. This one, we need to add a new movement to approval. There we go. And then here on approval, it doesn't really make sense to move back to adjustments. And this also doesn't need to be moved. And then I can also like remove the movements on the last step. So basically I just like created the whole movement that we have here on Pipefy.
Great.
So,
We have
okay.
a question that we can answer quickly too, Pedro, and feel free to help with this one. But how do we measure ROI with Pipefy flow process? So this is actually a question we get quite often because, of course, as you automate a process, you need to be able to show this to some leadership and maybe get the approval to purchase a tool like Pipefy, right? And so the ROI typically comes from time saved. And then a lot of times we multiply kind of a variable by that time saved. So there's some instances where, you know, typically there'd be an instance where this example that we're working on currently is that there's a team of literally 20 people managing over, it was something around 10,000 requests a month. And in us automating some of the different steps within those 10,000 requests that they receive, it drastically reduced the number of actual requests that needed to be worked. And therefore, the time saved was a significant amount of block of time that was just automated by sending people to the right place or getting specific information and getting the details of the information from an automated process versus a manual search or manual emails going back and forth or whatever it may be. And so realistically, when we start talking about ROI, we're definitely talking about time saved, but then you try to calculate numbers by that time saved, right? Like if we've saved 20 hours of work this month, how much is, say, our average salary times those 20 hours? We've saved this block amount of money this month on just automating a bunch of these different steps within this particular time frame. So there's so many examples of where we have things that took 2 weeks now take an hour, things that have taken a month now take a couple days. You know, we've saved 20% of our requests are now being automated and information is being filled in without having to speak to some sort of agent or tech or approver or whatever it may be. So you really try to multiply that data, that time saved by some sort of variable that can actually give you a real life dollar amount of ROI that you've saved. So one baseline example too, and I'll finish with this, is that typically we've calculated, and I think it was actually Gartner that calculated for this, and Lindsay, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it was one automation that occurs, one actual automated piece of the process that occurs saves 3 minutes of time. And so a lot of times what we'll do is we'll say, hey, you've automated, 100 different things this month. We times that by 3 minutes, then we actually have the time that you've saved. And then we multiply that by some sort of variable that's relative to your market and your industry. And then we can get an actual dollar amount to reach the ROI. So some complex ways. Hopefully I explained that simply, but it is a hot topic of, hey, I need to be able to prove that automating this process in this system will save us money. Can you do that? And the answer is yes. So. Do we have audited use cases of ROI? Yes, we do. So this is something we do with our actual live customers. We do this on kind of our QBRs, our quarterly business reviews. We go through and say, hey, and we have this data, this live data that we can share with some of our customers have released some of this data for us. But we go through these QBRs and we show exactly how much time has been saved, exactly how many steps have been automated within this process. And then we confirm with the actual customer that's using Pipefy, hey, are you seeing this as well? Like, do you see the time saved? Have we knocked it down, like you mentioned, from 2 weeks to 1 hour? Is that real? Is that live? And can you confirm this data? So yes, we do have actual audited use cases that we do quarterly business reviews all the time, where it's happening every single month, every single quarter with our existing customers, because we want to make sure that you have this information ongoing as well, right? To be able to show, hey, we've introduced a Pipefy and here's what we're saved, here's what we've done. And so, yeah, this is a pretty hot topic that we go over with our customers every quarter. So.
Okay, so let's move back here to how the process map thing here on how to process map an IT ops process. So now that we have like a backbone of the process, and I just noticed that Glenn sent over a question if there is in a specific vertical which we focus on, such as oil and gas, manufacturing, healthcare. Not exactly. So the product is very like horizontal. So we are able to encompass like most of the verticals that we are that you try to use and try to map processes and have like a workflow automation using Pipefy. So I myself, I worked with companies that are using it for like HR onboarding, IT ops, purchase processes, and so on. And we do have like lots of different use cases for Pipefy, and like with time passing, we have many, like we basically get the more processes and more use cases as time passes here on Pipefy. But yeah, so we don't have really a specific vertical. I don't know if you want to talk.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. Thank you, Pedro. And Pedro is spot on to this, right? And we analyze all of our customers as well. And we've gone through this analysis in great detail. We're not necessarily a vertical or industry specific. We line up a little bit more towards individual roles and individual teams, right? If we are going to go vertical, we talk to a lot of finance teams. If we are going to go vertical, we talk to a lot of IT teams. But to answer your question, Glenn, when I see our pipeline numbers and who are our customers and who we're selling to, at one instance, we'll have one of the largest EV producing manufacturing companies in our country using Pipefy to order bolts and specific things within their manufacturing plant that they need, right? And then the same breath, the very next call we have is someone within healthcare trying to get form information accurately inputted into a system and then exported, maybe using some OCR technology that can read documents and automatically put information in. So there's instances where we're then working with a college to help offboard students. And so not necessarily industry specific from a vertical standpoint, but it aligns more towards, anything having to do with request management is kind of a term we keep throwing out there, is like, if there is some sort of request that occurs or some sort of data that goes back and forth or something that needs to happen to start a process, that's kind of where we jump in. So it is very broad. We've done a detailed analysis on this, but yes, to Pedro's point, we help a lot of different people in a lot of different verticals.
Okay, so I'll move on here, and I noticed that we have like some more questions as well. but yeah, so companies should employ a process a management application versus a project management application. So yeah, a process management application basically enables you to have like your process streamlined instead of only projects. So things that are more cyclical, so like IT operations or purchase process, which will basically be the same process again and again. You can basically streamline it much more with a process management application because you'll be able to do integrations and standardized things that will be doing here with Pipefy as a process management application. And I don't know if you want to answer those live or if I should
Yeah.
move with the others here.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey. It's actually a question we get quite often because people will say, hey, well, I have like a Monday.com or I have a smart sheet that's handling a lot of my different tasks. I think where process management software comes into play as compared to those different project management softwares is we help integrate to different systems and push and pull data into different systems. So not only do we help you align with different tasks that need to be completed, but we actually help you align with kind of the orchestration of the process. So if you do need approvals from 5 different people from 5 different teams, we can help automate those approvals. If you do need to pull once an approval occurs, if you need to pull, say, in a procurement use case, an invoice from NetSuite that automatically gets generated on the information you received from the client, say from a manufacturing plant that ordered 10 bolts that cost this much, we can automate those different steps based on the if then or this criteria, which allows us to be kind of a low code platform. And then we help the orchestration of all those different steps. So you can still, of course, absolutely have a project management tool that allows different tasks to be done. But once a task is done, how does it affect the next phase within that process? And does it go into a different system? Does it need to pull information from one system to another? That's kind of the defining differentiator between process management tools and project management tools. Process management helps you more orchestrate all of the different tools together in different systems and gather information and data and push and pull from different places. And then tie it back to the systems that people are working in, right? Because a procurement team might be working in a Recurly or a Coupa, and then the IT team might be working in a Zendesk, and then an HR team might be working in Workday. How do we tie those different steps and tasks together? And Pipefy as a product helps you kind of integrate and orchestrate that piece. Can we link Pipefy with a balance scorecard? Not exactly sure what that means. I think it's more of less of maybe you're scoring different vendors in that instance, or you have different ways that you've scored different pieces and parts, right? So we want to make sure that, yes, we can integrate with just about any system that we have out there, even homegrown systems we've been able to integrate into. So is there a scorecard that is a measurable that, Pedro showed databases earlier in the demonstration, but if there's some sort of database that hosts all your scorecards and you want to base different triggers and actions on those scorecards, we absolutely can do that. We do that with some of our vendor management customers where they want to see, hey, we've scored our vendors. They're scored in this particular system. When we want to order something or a request comes in for a purchase, can you send out an email to these 3 vendors, making sure that this one receives it first, second, and third, whatever it may be, or the top rated vendor is the one that we typically go to? Can we just submit that request to that top rated vendor? And then we manipulate these requests to go out to that particular person based on this kind of scorecard analysis that you've done either in a different system or whatever it may be. So, awesome. Cool. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah. So, and you're agnostic to OS. I didn't quite get that, but I see that Lindsay is typing an answer. But yeah, so while Ernesto was answering your questions here, I was doing some of the mapping so that you basically can see how this is done. So if you go over here, you see that we still have like those phases, which we've already mapped out beforehand. And if I click here on create new card on this blue button, this is basically our what we call start form. So those are the information that we need to receive to kickstart this process. So in the case of an IT ops process, what I've added here is like your name, your email, request category. So I've added 3 hardware issues, software issues, or other. We can have like, please explain what you need, ticket urgency, and ideal deadline. So basically to build your form, this form here, which is the start form, which has the information that you need to start the process, or any activities that you have within the process itself, you can go over here to edit form, or on the faces, you can click here on the gear icon. But in this case, let's go to edit form. And here we have what we call the form builder. So on the form builder, you'll be able to basically build your own activities that you need on each step of the process, or what has to be sent to you to start this process. To do that, you'll use this drag and drop experience where you'll be able to select the field types which you want to add. So in this case, I've added like your name, which is a short text, your email, which is an email field. I've added a drop down with the request category. So we have hardware issues, software issues, and other. And we can also, I've added like this order just to show you another thing that we have here. So let's go here and add some other one. So what software is this related to? And then we can like add my options. So let's say that we would have like Pipefy or Zoom or I don't know, Slack or any other software that we are using, Chrome or something like that. So I could, now I have this new field on this process, but what's happening is that it is showing regardless, like even though I haven't selected this as a software issue, it's still showing up here. So to create like dynamic forms, what we have to use is another feature that we have, which is field conditionals. So by clicking over here and adding a conditional on a form, I'll be able to create those conditional forms. So like basically dynamic forms. So let's say that the first one is other. So what I'll do is I'll set the scenario. My scenario is that when the request category is equal to other, what I want to do is I want to show that other feature, other field here. So let's add the field and let's add the other one, which is like software issue, or and then here I'll select once again the request category is equal to software issues. Then I'll show on my start form the this here. So what software is it related to? Then I just like sending over, if the scenario doesn't happen, you can also add like ands or ors to your field conditional to have like more complex scenarios. But let's add this one here. And you see that now on my form. So let me just refresh my screen actually. When I click here on create new card, I'll have now my name, my email, and if I select software issues, we'll have this field popping up, and other will have this other one. So this is a way that you can use to have like your own dynamic forms here. So yeah, we already have set this up. We can also like make this form better, adding like some databases and things, which I'll show you how to do in a bit. But before that, just like let's move on to the phases themselves. So we have firstly here screening, which I'll click here on edit phase, and then I can just like add what needs to be done during screening. So here, let's say that I would have like my IT analyst. I'll have like some questions. So firstly, let's move this radio select one here. So this would be like, does this ticket comply with the company's policies? Horizontal, just because it looks nicer here in this case. Yes or no, I can add descriptions. So check the the company policy to see what's permitted or something like that. So basically I've just added like a description to this field, so you can use that to make things like more digestible, so people know what they are supposed to do here in each one of those steps. So let's say that we have here yes or no. We can put like a long text field, which why not? So basically the person would type over here, why doesn't it comply with the company's policies? And we could also have, I don't know, a checklist if we wanted to add like the policies over here. But in this case, I'll just keep over with those two. So if the company, if the ticket comply with the company's policies, and why not if it doesn't comply? I'll also add, like, I don't know, an attachment field here, actually a long text field here, which will be additional details. So if for some reason the person who is on screening wants to add some additional details on this process, then they can just like request this over here.
Yeah.
Another thing.
I'll chime in real quick, Pedro. Thank you for showing all those details. So just so you get a perspective on what he was trying to show you is realistically, how are the different individual steps within that particular portion of the process, right? If then this, if this, then that, if this is not complete, then maybe we need to send it to our SAP system to gather some information and then spit it back. And now we have the accurate information. So whatever we need to do as far as the steps go for the if then and this with the different phases within your process, we want to make sure we have those dialed in and nailed down, because that's kind of where the real work is getting done within the process, to making sure that, hey, everyone's always being informed of all the different pieces of information that we need to collect. And then everyone is also responsible for their portion. And of course, you can tie SLAs to all of this. Some of our finance companies we work through have, strict and stringent laws on SLAs and timelines, and even healthcare, right? Of when people need to be informed of specific things. So making sure that SLAs are also involved with all of these different steps and tasks that need to get done. It's pretty powerful to make sure that you not only can stay in compliance of what you're looking to do, but nothing falls between the cracks. And so you could see Pedro lives in this world of going through each little detail with a client of each specific step within their phase and their process, and allows you to really capture every single thing that's in here. And yep, Suleiman, thank you for attending. Appreciate the comments. And yeah, Pedro, I'll let you take it back. Maybe we only have 10 minutes. Not sure. Did you want to go over anything integration related, or we can push that maybe to another webinar, because that could take another 20 minutes on its own, right? So
Yeah, integrations, I think we could try to talk a little bit about that. But what I actually wanted to show you, firstly, I shown you how to build the forms and also how to create those dynamic forms. What I wanted to show you is how to set your own business rules here on PyPI. So what we can do for that is we can click here on this automate button, which basically enables you to create your own business rules here within PyPI. So if I click here on create automation, I'll be prompted to select my event and what this will do. So you can see here that I can select, for example, every time a card enters a phase, a field's updated, a card is created, and so on. So let's say that I want to use a card is created. So in the pipe IT ops, I want to add some conditionals to it. So the condition that I want to add is if the ticket urgency is equal to, oh, I forgot to add those fields. So let's actually add those labels. So firstly, so here I can add labels for my like ticket urgency. Let's say high is my, and then a red here color, and let's create like, let's say low. So those two will be my labels. When I create in here, I'll be prompted to put my ticket urgency, where if I just refresh my screen, I'll be able to do that. So now we have those two labels, high and low. So let's create our automation back again. So click here on automation. When a card is created, what I want to do is I want to monitor for the ticket urgency. And if the ticket urgency is high, what I want to do is I want to basically create like that custom deadline. So let's say that for urgent tickets, like high urgency tickets, we want to add like a deadline of a day. And for low urgency, we want to add 3 days. So here I'll select this update card or record field, but you see that we can like send emails, move cards, create cards on other processes. So you can have like sub processes connecting to each other, which is another thing that I could show you in another webinar. But let's use here, update a card or record field, select a field, and we'll have here like the deadline. So I can just go over here, select this date and time of event. And then if I click over here, I can use like a relative date. So 1 hour after, 1 day after, 7 days after, or a custom date. So let's say that I want for this like actually 1 day after, which is this one that we already have. So there we go. So high urgency, urgency ticket. Let's save. Let me just duplicate this. And let's use this for our low urgency tickets, which we have here. Let's just change this to low. And let's put this as a custom date at 3 days after. Save the automation. And there we go. I know that this is like a simple business rule that I said over here, but you can have like approval routings and other sort of like business rules. So let's say assigning people. So if we had like software related issues, I would assign a group of people, but if it was hardware related issues, then I would assign a other group of people. So this all can be set here and you could have your process as automated as you can. So basically this is very tied to what Ernesto was talking about beforehand on like ROI. So you can basically automate your whole process, creating those automation rules, which are basically your business rules. Not only that, but integrations, which would be like making PyPI talk with other software. So all of this can be set here on PyPI. And once you have it all set, you'll be basically saving a lot of time from your team on sending emails or assigning deadlines, assigning people, making things go faster so that people know what they need to do. Not only that, but they don't have like to do some more like, let's say, boring chores and that take a lot of time. So let's say writing emails that are templated or writing information from PyPI to an SAP or a Zendesk or any other software that you already have. This all can become automated if you use the business rules and integrations.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Well said. Quick question from Christopher. How might the steps and conditions and process trigger an external process, like from a different system, right? An API call and so on. Yeah, that happens almost with every single one of our clients where a different step or process or condition applies in this particular instance. And then all of a sudden, it changes something in a completely different system, grabs their information, maybe even transfers the text and data from Pipefy to a different system. So you have the availability of like connecting this to absolutely when this happens, then triggers something to a different source or a different system outside of Pipefy. It's actually quite often something we do with just about every single one of our clients. And we have some pretty large clients that use that type of data and transfer for some of their large processes. So
great. So I'll just like show you the automation, and then I can just like add a little bit more to that like API question. So let's just move on, and you can see here that I've set this to high, and because of that, my deadline is already automatically set to a day after the hour that I just created it. So the 16th of February at 2:56 p.m. So this is the time that I'm right now. But yeah, so let me just move and add a little bit more like to API. So on integrations, basically what we have, Pipefy has an open API, which is very comprehensive. So basically everything that you are able to do while on the UI, being it like creating new tickets or querying information. So let's say that when I open a ticket, I can see like the name, the email request category, all of this you'll be able to get from the API. Not only that, but we also support webhooks. So let's say that you wanted to monitor for whenever a card is created or whenever a ticket is created, whenever you have a ticket with like high urgency. So we can trigger webhooks for that. And through an integration via a REST API or a SOAP API, being it basically an API integration, we are able to like send information from PyPI to other software or get information from other software and pass it over to PyPI. So it's very easy to do. And just as Ernesto said, is a thing that we do like almost like every minute, if not every second, we are running integrations in PyPI here. And it's a thing that I like create integrations for lots of our largest customers. I've already done that lots of times, and it's very easy to do it here in PyPI.
Yep. Thank you, Pedro. That's exactly what we do on a daily basis. So appreciate the question, kind of led us right into it. We only have a few minutes left. And so I want to first say thank you to Pedro for showing us that in-depth piece. Thank you for the audience for actually asking great questions. Yes, Chris, we currently are a cloud-based tool. We do have the ability to do single tenant. So if you want to host the data on your particular systems, we have the ability to do that. That a lot of times comes up with, of course, more private information. And we are going to deliver one last poll question. So what we're actually offering here, and kind of, this is not something we typically do, but we are giving out some free process mapping. So you will speak to someone like Pedro, as well as someone like myself, to assist you on a just free product mapping of your process. Because I think it might be the second step of determining this. Like the first step is, yes, we have a problem and we need to automate this process. The second step is, all right, let's start mapping this process. So if anyone wants to take advantage of this, it will be a free 1-hour session with someone like Pedro and myself to go over a full mapping of your process and then what it will look like with different steps. So feel free to answer the quick poll question if you would like to schedule a mapping session. And it most likely looks like it's going to be with Pedro. So and we will hopefully have colors in our flow chart next time. I know we had a few of those colorful flow charts teed up that we didn't get to show since the team here selected IT operations. But yeah, if you'd like to get a free mapping session with Pedro, no ties involved with it, no cost associated with it. We just think it's good for people to start processing their maps or mapping their processes, sorry, with any individual contributor. I think this is the world we live in now. We want everyone to be more efficient with their tools and their systems that they have. And we will be sending some information post this, but if you want to individually request some information from us as well, like the recording, maybe a couple of those use cases where we actually have live data of existing customers that have specific ROI and things that they've done with Pipefy, we absolutely will get in contact with you, and you are welcome to contact us as well. That being said, we finished right on time. Want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you guys for attending. We will be doing more of these in the future if you'd like to attend. So be sure to contact Pipefy at any time. Appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of your week. Thank you.